Having recently watched Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 at the movie theater twice, the first time with 2 acquaintances and the second time with just me, myself, and I now have my ranking of all 7 movies. It's very similar to my ranking of the first 6 movies, with this exception. Mission Impossible 7 Dead Reckoning Part 1 I have in the 3rd spot. In the 6 rankings, it was 241, 356, and now it is 241, 3756. So there you go. Now, I really wanted to make this review and produce it as soon as possible, but I wasn't going to record my own personal take of Mission Impossible 7 until I listened and heard and watched Ben Shapiro's take and FilmSpeak's take. They both had issues and problems they had with the movie that a lot of other people may not have, because most people, for the most part, really liked this movie and had a terrific time. But after recently watching Ben Shapiro, who gave it a 7 out of 10, and FilmSpeak, who had a number of issues with it, and both men had thoughtful points about this, you'll get my grade and rating at the end of this movie. But yeah, I had to hear Ben Shapiro and FilmSpeak first. But now, this is my personal take, thoughts and opinions of a movie review of 2023's Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Light the fuse! Light the fuse! Now, I'll have 6 negatives with 1 bonus negative and then 10 positives. So here we go. Alright, now my second negative will most likely not be noticed about or cared about to 99% of people, but it's something that did really bother me, and I'm probably the only entire individual person in this entire world that would even think to mention this, and you'll hear what that is in a moment in my second negative. But first, 1. I thought I walked into the wrong theater with the movie's first opening sequence involving a Russian water submarine. Privyet, как дела? Хорошо. I thought that whole scene could have been cut from the movie's running time. They try to explain the importance of the Russian water submarine in other section parts of the movie, but for me personally, I found it to be the weakest opening to any of the movies in the franchise. Yes, even more so than Mission Impossible 2 from 2000. If you like The Hunt for Red October, or stuff of that nature, of those kinds, then you may not mind like I did. Hopefully, the whole Russian water submarine stuff is explained more thoroughly in Part 2. And now, for my second negative, which is, I'm probably the only person in the entire world that's even thinking to mention this, but here it is. Early in the movie, there is a Washington, D.C. intelligence meeting where the major threat of the movie, the AI, artificial intelligence, can infiltrate many places and countries. One of the people in the meeting include Israel as one of the possible countries that could be threatened by this force. Israel would never ever let anything that extreme happen to them, themselves. And Israel is the top of the line when it comes to creating technology and electronics. If you didn't know, they created the driving navigational thing, Waze, however you pronounce that. Israel was also briefly mentioned in the second Daniel Craig James Bond movie, Quantum of Solace. Quantum of Solace. The governor character in the Quantum of Solace short story defines it as a precise figure defining the comfort, humanity, and fellow feeling required between two people for love to survive. If the Quantum of Solace is 0, FS, then the love is dead. It relates to the idea that two people in a relationship have to be able to give a minimum of solace to each other when the situation requires it. If they don't, there is no respect left, and the relationship is over. And now, for my third negative. This movie has entirely too much exposition. Basil exposition? This movie has entirely too much exposition in it. This exposition stuff could be toned down a whole lot. My fourth negative. Luther, Benji, and Ilsa Faust are not given enough to do in this movie. They are just not given enough to do. Luther, Benji, or Ilsa Faust. They are kind of overshadowed by all the new characters that are in this movie. Fifth negative. This has the longest runtime of the entire series at 2 hours and 40-some minutes. Why do most movies these days have to be 2.5 to 3 hours long in length? It's absolutely ridiculous and not really always necessary. I had to pee from my drink during the movie, but did not want to miss any of the scenes. All right, and now for my sixth negative. Solomon Lane, who was in 5 and 6, Rogue Nation and Fallout, Solomon Lane survived the end of Fallout 6. Where the hell was Solomon Lane in all of this? I want to see more Solomon Lane, especially for how he fought Benji and Ilsa Faust at the end of Fallout, the 6th one. Will he appear in Dead Reckoning Part 2? Maybe, probably not, but he survived end of 6. He still wants to do stuff. So, Solomon Lane, bring him back. And Gabriel, the main villain of this movie, physical villain, person-wise, Gabriel, well, we think human anyway, Gabriel is alright, but who is exactly Gabriel's boss through this? Again, it has something to do with artificial intelligence, a non-human thing running things. It can be a bit confusing for some. So, yeah, Solomon Lane, where the hell was he surviving in the end? Especially, where was Solomon Lane? Because Vanessa Kirby's character mentions to Tom Cruise's character about John Lark, which, of course, if you saw Fallout, the term John Lark was mentioned briefly in this, but nothing about Lane. So, you got the John Lark back, you got Vanessa Kirby back, but no known thing at all. And it may not even be in Part 2 to answer Solomon Lane, what's going on with him. Kind of want to know. And now for my bonus negative before I get into the 10 positives. For my bonus negative, it goes like this. Do you remember? I think they may have added it on later, but do you remember that at the end of Back to the Future Part 2, when the movie was over, Back to the Future Part 2, they showed a trailer for Back to the Future Part 3? That's the first movie example. That was 89 and 90. And then in Matrix Reloaded in 2003, which was filmed also with Matrix 3 Revolutions, at the end of Matrix Reloaded, they showed a trailer for, wait for it, Matrix 3 Revolutions. So with these two Back to the Future and Matrix examples, why didn't we get a trailer for Dead Reckoning Part 2 after Part 1? That would have hyped up people even more. They saw Part 1, a lot of people liked it. Ben Shapiro and FilmSpeak had some issues with it, but that's why I wanted to hear them first before I made mine. And that would have been so cool, so neat, so incredible if they showed and had made for us a trailer of Dead Reckoning Part 2 after the end of the credits, at the end of the last scenes of Part 1. Missed opportunity for a trailer. Maybe they're still working on it. Who knows? But we really have a lot of questions we want answered in Part 2, and a trailer would have helped up with that. Now, with all those 6 negatives and the bonus out of the way, here are my 10 positives. Number 1, I can proudly say, and be very happy about this. Number 1, this movie is not woke. It's what? The movie is not woke, just similar to his last year's, Tom Cruise's last year's Mission Impossible, Top Gun Maverick. This movie is not woke because Tom Cruise would not disappoint fans like that. Number 1, the movie is not woke, which is a very, very thing that would help people that, like me, who really want all this woke nonsense. Enough already. Enough with the woke. Number 2. Luther and Benji work well together in the short time they're in the movie. Like I said in my negatives, they're not given enough to do because of the new characters and such. But in the short, small, limited amount of time that Luther and Benji are in this, and they often are near each other and work together, Luther and Benji work well together in the short time that they're in the movie. Number 3. Bringing back Kittredge all the way back from the first original movie. Bringing back Kittredge all the way from that first original 96 movie made the story, for me, made the story more interesting. Number 4. The story involves artificial intelligence and that is very relevant to our times. While I don't like Israel as one of the countries being mentioned in the Washington, D.C. intelligence scene meeting, where it was one of the countries all included where this attack into the country could go into and happen, which I didn't buy for the Israel part. I did, however, in that D.C. intelligence meeting, like the mask reveal scene. With, you know what I'm talking about, with when the mask comes off in the intelligence scene. Number 5, the action, the fighting, and the set pieces are well done. Number 6, the music is also well done. Number 7, okay, so Film Speak's not going to agree with this one, but for what I got out of it, number 7, the women in the movie, there's like 4 different women. One's in Marvel, actually 2 are from Marvel. One was in the previous 2, and then the one was in Fallout. Yeah, that covers most of all the women there. I think that all the women, for the most part, they did really a solid job. The women did a solid job. There's some people won't like how the females are, but they all did a solid job. There's some people won't like how the females are or are not used. They may not like how some females are used in this, but I thought it was alright how it was done for the most part. Could have been better, but really, really nice how all those 4 women characters got to do what they did. Speaking of which, Haley Atwell is hot as fuck. Say what? Haley Atwell is hot as fuck. May I say so myself. Number 8. It has a set beginning, middle, and end for being a part 1. It's a complete enough story still being a part 1, unlike other movies, but still once you can't wait to see part 2, many of us. But as a part 1, it actually could be considered a complete story to many. Cruise as Ethan Hunt is awesome as usual. Number 9. After Cruise thanks the audience at the start of Top Gun Maverick, before Mission Impossible 7 starts, both Cruise and director Christopher McQuarrie thank the audience for showing up at the movie theater to see MI7 on the big silver screen, the way it was meant to be seen. This is a nice touch to be appreciated by them, the star and director, both of them in this one, for us, audience, coming back to the movie theaters to be seeing something like this blown up on the screen instead of staying home. Number 10. The movie is epic in scope and has some callbacks to that first original movie from 1996. Having not seen Dead Reckoning Part 2 to have a complete story, but the Part 1 is a complete enough story in itself, kind of, for what it was going for, I think Fallout, that's right, I think Fallout ultimately is still the top highlight of all the movies in the franchise. Of 1 through 7, I still think 6, Fallout, is totally so fantastic and quite so. I'm really not good at adjectives, but just know that Fallout was really well done. I'm not good. I'm not very well when it comes to adjectives. But fallout still comes in at number 1 of all those. I hope and pray that I'm around to experience Dead Reckoning Part 2 sometime in 2024, though there may be some release date subject to change of this due to the writer's strike. We all heard about the writer's strike going on now. I was thoroughly pleased by the majority of this movie. I cannot wait for Part 2, hopefully sometime in hopefully 2024. If I had to grade or rate Mission Impossible 7, I will give it a 3 out of 5 Kazakhstan stars. That's right, a 3 out of 5 Kazakhstan stars, or a 7.5 out of a 10. That's right, a 7.5 out of 10. Before I watched Ben Shapiro and Film Speak, I had it at an 8.5 out of 10, but having watched both of them, I'm going to give it now a 3 out of 5 Kazakhstan stars, or a 7.5 out of 10, originally an 8.5, but now 7.5 out of 10 Kazakhstan stars for that 7.5 out of 10 as well, or a B minus. I think a B minus is alright for what this is presented as so far. Support your local movie theater throughout the decade of the 2030s. That's right. That's the next decade coming up, the 2030s. Support your local movie theater throughout the decade of the 2030s to see films on the big silver screen with a community of strangers like no other memorable experience as there ever is one. Because these are the ways most movies are meant to be seen, like this movie for sure. Because these are the ways that most movies like this are meant to be seen, and also because streaming movies online at home is just not the same thing at all. And now, if you were waiting for this, for the music well done, here we go now. Dun 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 I hope you like the new tie I got myself here. I'm going to wear it in good health. This is a really, really huge tie in amazing ways. Everybody dance and have a good time. One more time. Everybody dance and have a good time. This is Millennial Man Motions Entertainment, LLC. Signing out.